Hey, this is Tim Y, the History Guy, bringing you another episode of Winchester 101. This time, we focus on U.S. presidents who were here in Winchester at some point before, during, or after their time in office in recognition of the upcoming President's Day holiday. Some visits are clearly documented, while others may be assumed as possible, given the prominence of the Valley Turnpike as a path of travel between places where certain presidents would have traveled. Okay, let's have some fun with this presidential history and presidential speculation. First, we'll begin with the well-documented ones. We know for certain that young George Washington was in Winchester on and off between 1748 and 1758. He began as a young surveyor, and then as a captain, and later as a colonel during the French and Indian War. Later, he was here in between trips to Williamsburg as one of two representatives to the House of Burgesses, representing Winchester and Frederick County. This would all have been before becoming a Revolutionary War general and the nation's first president in 1789. As a side note, one of the physicians tending to him on his deathbed in 1799 was Dr. Craig, who hailed from Winchester. Okay, moving on. Rutherford B. Hayes was in Winchester back in 1864 as a Civil War officer before becoming our 19th president in 1877. William McKinley was in Winchester back in 1864 and 1865 before becoming the 25th president in 1897. He then returned for a visit while president in 1899. McKinley was made a Mason in the May of 1865 in the Masonic Lodge that was in a building that once stood just north of where Brubaker's restaurant is, near the north end of the Old Town Mall. Getting off topic slightly, it's worth noting that Winchester native Major Holmes Conrad worked for three U.S. presidents: McKinley, Grover Cleveland, and Theodore Roosevelt, including presidential appointments as Solicitor General and Assistant Attorney General. President Lyndon B. Johnson visited here in 1964 while serving as our 36th president to escort his daughter, Lucy Baines Johnson, for her coronation as Apple Blossom Festival Queen. Johnson flew back to Washington immediately after the ceremony. President Richard M. Nixon and his wife Patricia flew into Winchester on May 4th of 1969 to join a group of U.S. senators as lunch guests of Senator and Mrs. Harry F. Byrd, Jr. at their house on Tennyson Avenue while serving as our 37th president. The May 5th, 1969 edition of the Winchester Star notes that President Nixon's helicopter landed at the Hanley Bowl, where he greeted several hundred persons before climbing into a limousine for the short ride to the Byrd home. Gerald F. Ford came to Winchester in May of 1975, 1 year after becoming the 38th president, when his daughter, Susan, was crowned as Apple Blossom Festival Queen. Ford returned to Winchester again in the late 1990s as a speaker for Shenandoah University's Marsh Institute, named for Jack Marsh of Winchester, who served as Secretary of the Army under President Ford. Okay, now let's speculate about some presidents who possibly spent time in Winchester, even if it was just minutes or hours to grab a meal while traveling along the Valley Turnpike. Before becoming our fourth president, James Madison definitely visited several times with his sister, Nellie Conway Madison, and her husband, Major Isaac Height, Jr., residing at Bell Grove just south of Middletown in southern Frederick County. The plans for the house were reviewed by Thomas Jefferson, our third president. It's possible that Madison may have traveled down the old wagon road to Winchester during one of his trips to Middletown. We know that Madison visited Harper's Ferry, but we're not sure if he did that on a trip also to Bell Grove. Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, is rumored to have stopped at the Taylor Hotel in downtown Winchester, either on his way to visit family that lived up the valley in Rockingham County or while making a trip back to Illinois. Zachary Taylor, our 12th president, took office in 1849. He died in office, and though unlikely, he may have visited his daughter, Lucy Dandridge Taylor, who served as First Lady to her father as a substitute for her invalid mother. Lucy lived and died here in Winchester, residing in a now demolished house over on North Braddock Street. Finally, Woodrow Wilson, our 28th president, may have traveled through Winchester prior to becoming president, since it is on the Valley Turnpike between his birthplace in Stanton and New Jersey, where he served as governor just before getting elected as president. Okay, so out of 45 presidents as of February of 2020, we know for sure that 6 of them were here in Winchester before, during, or after serving as president. Without too much research, there's also reasonable speculation that another 4 presidents may have at least passed through or stopped overnight in Winchester. That's 10 out of 45. Not bad for a small city the size of Winchester. Well, that's it for me, Tim Y. the History Guy, until the next episode of Winchester 101.